Many Marxists went back to the drawing board, modifying and adapting Marx's ideas. Perhaps the most famous was a group associated with the Institute for Social Research in Frankfurt, Germany, which applied Marxism to a radical interdisciplinary social theory. The group included Max Horkheimer, T.W. Adorno, Erich Fromm, Herbert Marcuse, Jörg Lukács, and Walter Benjamin, and came to be known as the Frankfurt School. These men developed critical theory as an expansion of conflict theory and applied it more broadly, including other social sciences and philosophy. Their main goal was to address structural issues causing inequity. They worked from the assumption that current social reality was broken, and they needed to identify the people and institutions that could make changes and provide practical goals for social transformation. Putting it all together. In order to understand critical theory, it is important to understand how the words critical and theory are used. In the social sciences, critical is geared toward identifying and exposing problems in order to facilitate revolutionary political change. In other words, it implies revolution. It is not interested in reform. Hence, we do not reform the police. We defund the police or abolish them. It is more interested in problematizing, that is, finding ways in which the system is imperfect and making noise about them, reasonably or not, than it is in any other identifiable activity, especially building something constructive. This is complicated by the fact that critical theory denies objective truth. An approach based on critical theory calls into question the idea that objectivity is desirable or even possible. Write Özlem Sensoy and Robin DiAngelo in Is Everyone Really Equal? The term used to describe this way of thinking about knowledge is that knowledge is reflective of the values and interests of those who produce it. But this is only half the puzzle. The word theory can be used in two ways in the social sciences, as an abstract noun, as in, I have a theory about that, or as a proper noun, as in critical theory. According to the New Discourses Encyclopedia, theory, treated as a proper noun and thus capitalized, is an appropriate catch-all term for the thinking behind critical social justice, especially at the academic level. It is the set of ideas, modes of thought, ethics, and methods that define critical social justice in both thought and activism, that is, theory and praxis. In a meaningful way, theory is the central object, the canon and source of further revelation of canon of critical social justice. That is, theory is the heart of the worldview that defines critical social justice. In other words, critical theory is not just an analytical tool, as some have suggested. It is a philosophy, a worldview. Critical race theory. Perhaps the most important concept to grasp for the purposes of this book is critical race theory, CRT. Critical race theory is an outgrowth of critical legal studies, CLS, which was a leftist movement that challenged traditional legal scholarship. There has been much debate over CRT within evangelical circles recently. Some have accused those of us who are leery of CRT of creating a straw man and labeling everything we disagree with or that makes us uncomfortable as CRT. Therefore, it is important that I allow CRT to define itself in order to demonstrate that when I refer to this ideology, I am not making things up, taking them out of context, or building a straw man. I am merely taking its founders and practitioners at their word. According to UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, CRT recognizes that racism is ingrained in the fabric and system of the American society. The individual racist need not exist to note that institutional racism is pervasive in the dominant culture. This is the analytical lens that CRT uses in examining existing power structures. CRT identifies that these power structures are based on white privilege and white supremacy, which perpetuates the marginalization of people of color. CRT also rejects the traditions of liberalism and meritocracy. Legal discourse says that the law is neutral and colorblind. However, CRT challenges this legal truth by examining liberalism and meritocracy as a vehicle for self-interest, power, and privilege. Many discussions of